All right, so if you ever wanted to write a nonfiction book series that readers can't put down, this video is for you. So today I'm breaking down 11 simple elements that the most successful nonfiction series have so you can use them to create your own hit series. I'm qualified to do this because I've been writing, publishing, selling, and have taught tens of thousands of others how to self-publish both fiction and nonfiction since 2007. All right, my name is Ty Cohen, owner of KindleCashflow.com and PublishLikeAPro.com. So the first thing is, and I'm actually going to get my markers here because I'm going to use my board, right? The first thing that you'll find in some of the most successful nonfiction series are they have actionable, practical information. So actionable, practical information. All right, so that's the first thing that you'll find, and I'm actually going to move this up a little bit closer so that you guys can see this. Right, so now, what do I mean by actionable, practical information, right? So here's some examples. So clear takeaways, right? So you'll see where they have extremely clear takeaways, where they give advice that readers can use like almost right away. Like they can use it, they can take this advice and they can use it like instantly, right? So an example would be a book on money management, where that might show you how to go in and set up a simple budget in minutes. As you're reading the book, you can actually go in and get a pen and get a notepad and start to build out your budget following along with what the book is instructing you to do. All right, so they have these very clear takeaways. And if you notice, like, look at some of the books that are on the bestsellers list on the nonfiction side. You'll see where they all follow the same process, right? Being super clear, almost at like a 7th grade level, right? To the point where you can go and you can read that book and you're getting step by step. And which is the second point of it. So step-by-step guidance, right? So it breaks down big tasks into easy steps to follow. So easy steps to follow where almost anyone, regardless of their education level, and this is what you want the person who barely made it out of like elementary school, as well as the person who has a master's degree or double master's, if that's even, the ability to be able to understand what it is that your book is saying. All right, so the wider a net that you can cast, the more people that you'll get to be able to go in and purchase and read your book and become a fan of it, and that's what we want. All right, so an example of like step-by-step guidance would be, let's see, like a gardening book, right? A book on gardening might show how to go in and plant seeds. It might show how to water them, right? It might show how to properly measure how much water you're giving, right, to your seeds each day. It might show you how to track the growth, right, so that you can make sure that you're on the right path. So step-by-step guidance is something that you'll find along with, the clear takeaways, right? Just having that actionable, practical information. Those are things that you'll find in some of the most successful nonfiction books. All right, so they do this really, really, really well. Now, the other thing is, number 2 of 11 is approachability and accessibility. Right? And I'll talk about what this means in just a bit. And I promise you that's a TY, right? So approachability and accessibility. So you'll have where, if you think about like your favorite nonfiction book, they have like this simple, this friendly tone, right? So it's got like it's like talking to maybe like your favorite aunt or your favorite uncle, right? There's this simple, friendly tone in it where it uses like a casual and easy to understand way of talking. So a very casual and easy way of like understanding them because they're talking in that way. So for example, here's a series a nonfiction series that does extremely well, has done extremely well forever, and it's for dummies books. If you've ever seen like, the yellow for dummies books, and I think I might have 1 or 2 of them here in my library somewhere. But for dummies books, they use extremely simple language with a bit of humor to explain things, right? Because now what's happening is we're getting like this mix of edutainment. It's the it's the education, right? But it's also the entertainment. So they've got this humor that's kind of injected in there as well. So this approachability and accessibility, right? So the other thing is they are beginner friendly, right? Beginner friendly. So you can take someone who has never ever done anything on a computer, and they can go in and read like for dummies, for PC for dummies, right? Or Macs for dummies. And they get this clear step-by-step instructions on how to go in and use their PC or their Mac. So when you're doing this, I think the best way to do it is never assume that the reader knows a lot about the topic. Like, you always have to take what it is that you know and you bring it down to the most basic level so that you are explaining it to a fifth grader. This is the way that I like to do things. And when I'm asking people to explain things to me, I'll say, look, I know nothing about this, and you're not going to hurt my feelings if you explain it to me like I'm a fifth grader. Right? So that puts people at ease. It'll put your reader at ease. So an example might be a beginner's cookbook might start by explaining basic cooking terms like saute or boil. And when you do this, you're not insulting your reader. You're actually putting them at ease. You're putting them at ease. And then you can gradually ascend them up as you start to get a bit more complicated and a bit more into more detail. All right. So they are approachable and approachability and accessibility. Right. So again, remember, always simple, friendly tones. They are tones where it's very casual. It's like you're having a conversation with your best friend, right? They are easy to understand. I've got a doctor like this. My hematologist, as you guys know, I have sickle cell anemia. So my hematologist, she's just very down to earth. If you saw her out on the street, you will never know that she's a doctor, right? Because she has this very casual approach to her. She doesn't come in like, oh, I'm the expert and I've gone to school forever, and right? So when you're in her office, she puts you at ease. She has these casual conversations. She has she has a way of making even the most complicated things understandable. And that's one of the elements that you'll find in the most successful nonfiction book series, where the author has this way of making the most complicated things easy to understand. And when you do that, right, you open yourself up to, again, a wider audience. You're able to, and this is why you have these books like the For Dummies books that have sold tens of millions of copies, because they don't limit themselves, right? They're not limiting themselves to just one section of individuals who may be interested in learning how to use their PC, and they're not alienating a certain group because they're using these big terms, right? And these technical terms. So again, making it casual and easy to understand, and then making it super beginner friendly and whatever it is, all right? Always remember this. The beginning market, whatever it is that you're teaching, beginners will always be the largest market. There will always be more beginners that want to learn something than experts or even intermediates, right? So it could be fixing a car. It could be buying a home. It could be selling a home. It could be investing. There's always going to be a larger pool of beginners that want to learn about that. It could be becoming a better dad, becoming a better husband, right? It could be whatever it is, learning which supplements to take. There's always going to be a larger group of beginners and novices and newbies that want to learn about that topic than ever. So if you go after those people, you increase your chances of reaching a much larger pool of individuals. Let me know if that makes sense. And I think a lot of people miss that. And that's the opportunity for massive, massive book sales right there. Right. So the third thing is, now this is the third thing that you'll find when it comes to some of the most successful nonfiction book series that are out there that sell, right? So they have a consistent, trusted brand. So consistent, trusted brand. Now this one might be a little bit more difficult, especially if you're just starting out. Having that consistency, having a brand that's trusted. But the way that you get there is by just doing that, right? Being consistent. So being consistent in your actions, all right? So here's what you'll find in this section here, right? Consistent, trusted brand. You'll find where there's reliable expertise. So there's this expertise that is just, you know that this person, the author, the person who's created the content in this book, you know that they know what they're talking about. Without a doubt. You know that they know what they're talking about. All right? There's no wondering about it at all. So these books are written by people who really know the subject matter. They can go in and they can talk about it. They enjoy talking about it. They can teach it. They enjoy people asking them questions about it, right? These are people that sometimes you can't get them to shut up and stop talking about the thing that they're talking about, right? And look, if you are someone, you don't have to be a world-known expert to start out in this direction. If you are someone who people always ask you your opinion for certain things, right? So for example, my wife, she's great at decorating. Like our home is beautifully decorated. We've got some properties that are beautifully decorated. When she goes in and she decorates them, right? So people are always asking her, like, how did you do this? And how did you do it on a budget? And make it look, like, how do you take this small budget and you make it look like this multi-million-dollar budget? Right? So if you are someone who people are always asking your opinion on things, you are the expert. People look at you as the expert. So even if you don't think that you are the expert, you actually are. So you'll find with these books, they're written by people who really know the subject. They are the expert. Their friends, their peer groups, they consider them to be the expert. So an example might be a fitness series that's written by a trainer who is an expert in his or her field, right? That's the individual that people will come in and they'll ask fitness questions of, right? They'll say, hey, can you come with me to the gym? Or how much can I pay you to help me with X, Y, Z? Right? Or, hey, do you have 5 minutes? I've just got this question about how do I get bigger biceps, or how do I get this six pack, right? So if you're that person, then you are the expert. Even if you don't have a title, right? Even if you don't have the schooling, unless it's something that you actually need schooling for, like, law or medical practice, we're going to be sensible here. But don't let, like, the fact that you don't have the credentials hold you back from this thing, because there's many people that are experts that probably can't hold a candle to what it is that you know. All right. So the other thing is authority and credibility. So you'll find in these books, right, that have consistent, trusted brands, that the readers trust these books because they come from a respected expert. Now these might be the individuals that have the credentials, right? It's the authority and the credibility. Right? So for an example, a financial advisor series might be written by a seasoned investor, right? It might be, I said a financial advisor series. I meant a financial advice series might be written by a seasoned investor. So if you look at like the Rich Dad Poor Dad series, right? I don't think that Robert Kiyosaki, and I've actually had the chance to work with him many, many times, but I don't think that he has, I don't think that he ever went to school for any type of financial education. Now, I could be wrong. Correct me in the comments or the chat box if I'm wrong on this, but there's many people that are experts, right? Dave Ramsey, an expert on financial advice, and what they've done is they've become the experts in the sense of they've created these products, right? You can go and you can do the same thing. You can create your book that helps other individuals within that same area. So a financial advice series might be written by a seasoned investor. The fourth thing that you'll find, and this is something that gives you a lot of longevity here, and it helps you to stay evergreen. I think a lot of people miss this. So the fourth thing that you'll find of 11 that most nonfiction book series that sell tens of millions of copies have in common is they're broad and they have flexible application. So they are broad with flexible application. All right, and I'll explain what that means. So they appeal to a wide audience. That's what I mean by broad, right? They appeal to this huge audience. And they cover topics that a lot of people deeply care about. So you'll see where there's topics that people really deeply care about that are covered. And what are some of those topics? Like, I want you to think about this right now. What are some topics that 9 out of 10 people might be interested in at some point in their life? at some point, like think about that really quickly. Now, if you think about it, it might be something like finances. It might be something like health. At some point in their life, right? They may be interested in getting better with their finances. They may want to get better with their health, right? Improving on their health. So money, health, relationships. So an example of this would be like the 5 love languages. It talks about relationships with friends, relationships with your family, relationships with partners. I've got books on dating that I published 15 years ago that I turned into a series that still generate me royalties to this day, right? There's that longevity in it. And that's what I was talking about at the very beginning of this, was the evergreen ability of it, right? So evergreen being something that can sell, has the potential to sell over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? So they have this appeal to a very wide audience. And usually you'll find this in, again, like topics around health or finances. So health, wealth, relationships. Right? So again, the 5 love languages is another book series that's been around forever, right? Because it fits within one of those topics. The other thing is they have like this adaptability across topics. So adaptability across topics. So a great example of this will be a series that can be used to explore new ideas within the same theme. So new ideas within the same theme. So an example would be Chicken Soup for the Soul. So you'll see Chicken Soup for the Soul. It's got books for different groups like teens. So there's Chicken Soup for the Soul, Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, Chicken Soup for the Expecting Mother, Chicken Soup for the Parents, Chicken Soup for Pet Lovers, right? Chicken Soup for Christians, Chicken Soup for Muslims, right? So it has this ability to adapt across multiple topics. And this is actually easier to do than you would imagine. Let's say you take a subject like, so I'll go back to my dating books, right? So when I first created my dating series, it was just a general dating book. Just dating in general. And then I went in and I kind of expanded it, and it's dating for teenagers, right? And then I created another book, dating for 20-year-olds, dating for 30-year-olds, dating for 40-year-olds, dating for 50-year-olds, dating for 60-year-olds, dating for 70-year-olds, right? And then I expanded dating for men, dating for women, and I can continue to double down on that. Dating for 70-year-old women. Dating for 40-year-old men. So there's always, like, you can always go really wide and then come back and niche it down, right? So that's what Chicken Soup for the Soul did. It started out really wide by just having this overall brand of Chicken Soup for the Soul, which was their first book, and then they started to expand it on it, right? So you'll find where the books that do the best, non-fiction-wise, in the series format, have this broad, flexible application, and they appeal to a wide audience, right? They appeal to this huge audience, and then they have the ability to adapt across multiple topics, all right? So that's one of the things that you'll find here. Now, the next thing that you'll find is number 5 of the 11 elements that you'll find across the most successful, I'm talking about nonfiction book series that sell in the millions and tens of millions of copies, right? Is strong. So strong branding and a recognizable format. So recognizable, right? So strong branding and a recognizable format. I'm probably going to have to get another sheet after this, but excuse me, I got a cold. My whole family is, we got some type of a cold right now, all of us. My daughter does cheer, and she's always around a bunch of kids, and she's been doing it forever. So she'll bring stuff home sometimes. So now, think about series that, like, what are some series that have this strong branding and a recognizable format? Meaning, you could be in a bookstore, or you could be on Amazon, or you could be in Barnes & Noble, and you could see it across the room, and you recognize the colors, you recognize the format, and you know that that book is part of a series. You know that that book is written by an author that you're familiar with, right? Because maybe the font type might be the same. Maybe the branding might be the same. Maybe the colors might be the same. Maybe you could see the logo, like The Secret, right? So Rhonda Byrne, she did this really well, where it's got this wax seal, right? It's got the S and the red wax seal. And now whenever you see that, even if it's not something that is related to The Secret, you instantly think The Secret, because She's done that so well with her brand in creating this recognizable format. So there's consistent format across books. So consistent format across books. So all books in the series, they look and they feel the same. For Dummies does this, right? So they have like the yellow covers, and then they have the similar layout. They even have like the little character that you'll find in the For Dummies books. If you go and you pull up one of your For Dummies books, you'll see that little character there. And that's something that's unique to that book series. That's unique to that brand, right? So you'll see that. So think about like this. When you're first planning out your series, think of the color scheme that you want to use. Think of the logo that you want to use. Think of the font type that you want to use and how you'll consistently use all of those things across each book in the series. So that now what you're doing is you're creating this recognizable brand, right? You are now creating this strong branding that's recognized no matter where people see it. It could be online, it could be offline, right? The other thing is they have a memorable visual identity, right? So it has a strong recognizable design that stands out. Chicken Soup for the Soul. These books are known for their heart-themed covers. So if you go in and you look at those books, you'll see that they have, and these guys have, I mean, Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, who are the authors of Chicken Soup for the Soul, the original, they have done a great job. And they've got literally dozens, if not hundreds of books that are part of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And if you look at all of the books, they are consistent. They are consistent. And what this does is it makes it easier for a fan of the series to be able to go in and buy something else, right? We're all collectors in a sort, and we want to have things that are part of a collection. So when you do this, you make it easier for collectors, people that, and that's what they are. So readers are more like collectors, especially when you go and you have them reading a series, right? They have to complete the collection. Think about your own, like, collecting habits. Like if you're a stamp collector, a book collector, a thimble collector, whatever it might be, comic book collector, you have to buy everything that's in that collection. You've got to get everything that's in the series. And then the people that put these things together, they make it easier for you because they have this memorable visual identity that I spoke about, right? They have this consistent format across everything that's in the collection. It doesn't matter if it's a baseball card collection or whatever it might be. They look the same. So if you do this with your books, you increase your chances of having much higher levels of success than someone that doesn't. Now, the sixth thing is, there is a clear value proposition. Right? So there's a clear value proposition. Now, what do I mean by this? Ty, what do you mean by, clear value proposition? Like, I'm not building out a business, right? Well, in actuality, so it is because you're problem solving. So you've got like this problem solving focus. And that's where you help your readers to solve specific problems that they're facing, right? And that should be the entire intent behind someone buying your book. So I've got this little cool writer's block. Right? Block. It's actually a block in a block format that I keep on my desk here. We were giving these away at our Kindle Cashflow Live events. And if you're interested in joining us at Kindle Cashflow Live, go over to PublishLikeAPro.com, and it's one of the fastest growing communities for writers and authors and influencers and digital publishers. Right now you can get in for free before we start charging, but everyone that gets in right now, you'll be in for free forever, right? So PublishLikeAPro.com. All right, so now problem solving focus. So this block, writer's block, right? They know, someone who sees this, you know exactly what this is about. It helps readers solve specific problems. The specific problem that this is helping its readers solve is overcoming writer's block, right? Another example of that might be like, the What to Expect series. What to Expect When You're Expecting. That series helps books, that series helps new parents prepare for their baby's first year, right? What to expect when you're expecting. So if you're having your first child, and you see that book on Amazon, or if you're walking through a bookstore, if you can find one, right, and you see that on the shelves, and you are pregnant, or your wife is pregnant, and you see that, you know exactly what you'll learn, right? You'll learn what to expect when you're expecting. to some degree, you'll understand what it is that you'll learn. So I think if you're crafty and you're creative with your titles, that helps you to sell as well. And that's one of the things that you'll find a lot of non-fiction book series have in common. Their titles are straightforward. They are problem-solving focused titles, all right? So problem-solving focused titles. Now, the other thing that you'll see is the reader-centric approach. So there's a reader-centric approach. So they focus on what readers need help with the absolute most. It's like the big overarching problem. What do they most need help with? Now, that doesn't mean that you can't double down and then you kind of go in and you talk about other things underneath that, right? But if you look at, like, let's say if you had a tech series. So a tech series might answer common questions like, how do I fix my computer? How do I fix my computer? Now, then underneath that, you can go in and you can kind of segment, and it might be, well, how do I fix if my mouse won't work, right? Or how do I get rid of blue screen of death, right? How do I connect my keyboard, Bluetooth, how do I make a Bluetooth connection so that my keyboard connects to my computer? Then you can go in, and like I said, you can kind of further niche it down. So you'll see in the most successful nonfiction book series, the ones that sell, I mean, just millions and tens of millions of copies, they have a clear value proposition, they're problem-solving focused, and they are reader-centric approach, right? They have a reader-centric approach. So that's number 6. Now, number 7 of 11 elements that you'll find in the most successful nonfiction book series are they have engaging and relatable content. So this right here, relatable, right? I also have a video series that I'm going to create on the 10 elements that you'll find in the most successful fiction book series. So I've studied this stuff. I put thousands and thousands of dollars. I bought like all of the most successful fiction and nonfiction book series that are out there. I went in, I read through all of them, studied all of the stuff, spent years and years of doing it, spent thousands and thousands of dollars buying all of these books and kind of pouring through them because I wanted to see what are the common denominators behind the books that do extremely well, both fiction and nonfiction. So I have a video where I cover the 10 most common elements in the most successful fiction book series. So make sure that you go and you watch that as well here on my channel. So now, one of the things that you'll find that both nonfiction successful book series as well as fiction successful book series is being relatable. So the reader can relate in some degree. Right? Now, I'm not going to talk about the fiction side. You go watch the fiction video if you want to see how you tie that into your books. But on a nonfiction side, one of the ways that you can be relatable to your reader is there's real life stories and examples. Right? Never forget that the person that's going to consume your content is a human. Like when you do that, when you write for humans, you start to inject these things that other humans can really relate to. Like they'll have experiences within their own life that they might identify with in your books, right? So real life stories and examples. So use stories and examples that readers can connect with. So an example of this would be Chicken Soup for the Soul, right? So it shares real life stories to inspire and comfort readers. So you'll have these real life stories where you might have stories in Chicken Soup for the Soul where the grandma is spoken about, right? And how the grandma took care of the family and she was the matriarch and, you know, maybe she made, you know, dinner and everyone loved it and maybe everyone loved coming in, sitting on her lap and hearing the stories that she would tell about the old days, right? So your reader, some of them, not all of them, but some of them might be able to identify with that. And that's what makes that connection. So that's what makes it relatable, right? And again, you do this in fiction and nonfiction and you increase your chances of being really successful, more so than if you don't. Right? It's always tying back to the emotions. It's always tying back to maybe even nostalgia, right? You're incorporating some type of a nostalgia into it as well, right? The other thing is they are emotionally impactful. Emotionally impactful. So what I mean by this is it touches on emotions to keep readers interested. Easiest way to build people or to actually build this interest that keeps people reading, right? So we touch on emotions to keep readers interested. So, for example, a book might share a story about someone overcoming a tough time, right? If you've ever followed me for a minute, you know that I talk about growing up really poor. I talk about growing up in one of the worst housing projects in the Northeast, right? I talk about being born with sickle cell anemia, being hospitalized hundreds of times, and being in hospital for weeks at an end many times, right? And having to learn how to use my arm all over again and walk all over, and just all of these things. And what happens is there's a certain amount of audience that are going to connect with it. Now, look, your things don't have to be as drastic as some of the things that I've gone through. But you could have, you could talk about like the stories of great times that you've had. And people can relate to that as well, right? So stories are going to be huge because they help to bring in that emotional aspect of it that impact your readers, all right? So touches on emotions to keep readers interested. And it doesn't matter what the emotions are, right? Just remember that your readers are human, all right? So there you go. Now, the 8th thing is, and this is one that I really love here, it's adaptability and longevity. I'm a big fan of evergreen, so creating evergreen topics, and you could do this with fiction and nonfiction as well. If you guys want to hear me create, if you want a video on how you can do this with fiction, let me know, because this is easy to do with fiction, like creating evergreen fiction content that sells forever and ever and ever and ever, all right? But on the nonfiction side, adaptability. So adaptability, hopefully you guys are writing these down, because if you write it down, you retain it. So adaptability and longevity, right? So you'll find where if you get these two right, you create, you have a chance of creating evergreen topics that can sell for a long time and that people will be interested in for a long time. Now, I'm not a big fan of things like, seasonal cookbooks, right? Because what happens is there's a period, there's a time when someone will come in and buy. Like if you've got, a cookbook on how to create Christmas cookies, well, your buyer's only looking for that around Christmas. And then as soon as New Year's hits, unless they're buying it on clearance, then your sales take a dive, right? Like you might have this huge, uptake in sales around December, November, but that's it. So when I say evergreen, I'm talking about things that sell year-round, because they're not attached to a certain period of the year, and they're not limited to a certain time period. So they can sell 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, right? So staying relevant. So under adaptability and longevity, you'll find where the most successful nonfiction books, they have this element of being able to stay relevant. So it adds new books to stay up to date with current trends. So for example, for dummies, when they first started out, it was like, I think one of the first for dummies books was PCs for dummies, right? So how to use PC computers for dummies. They now have guides on things like social media and coding for dummies, right? YouTube for dummies, becoming an influencer for dummies. So do you see how they've continuously stayed up to date with current trends? Because if they just stayed in that one element of PCs for dummies, they would become quickly dated. But if you set this up the right way, then it gives you the ability in the room to be able to adapt, right? Evergreen topics. So focus on subjects that people are always interested in. Now, if I went in and I created a book on, let's say I created a series on how to hula hoop, right? Now, actually, you know what? Here's a better idea. Do you remember, so many years ago, my kids, they were infatuated with these little spinning things. It was the spinners. You could just spin them, and they would just spin all over the place, right? And they would have blue ones and red ones, and ones with different designs and different licensed characters on them and things like that. And all of the kids had them. So if I created a book series on how to become a spinning world champion, that book series might have sold extremely well during that period. But right now, it'd be hard to even give that away because no one's interested in spinners, right? So that's what I mean by evergreen. So what are the things that people will be interested in now, but they're also they'll also be interested in them 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And the further you can think out, the better. An example would be books about improving relationships, right? Or managing money. They never go out of style. The basic principles are always going to be the basic principles. So focus on subjects that people are always interested in and will always be interested in. And this is actually pretty easy. Like I said, my dating book series, I created that thing 15 years ago and it's still selling, right? So relationships are a big one. Health, wealth, money, right? So health, wealth, relationships. The ninth element that you'll find out of 11, all right, that most successful nonfiction book series have in common, and these are book series that kick butt, are community, and I'm a big fan of community. So community, engagement, and fandom. So community, engagement, and fandom. And this is why I'm a big fan of community, because communities has helped me out big time. And if you want to see how, in real life, an example of how communities can work, just go over to PublishLikeAPro.com and join our community. You can, like I said, you can join it for free right now before we start charging for it. And people that get in now, you'll always be grandfathered in. So you'll never pay, even when we start charging $97 a month for it. So community, engagement, and fandom. If you start incorporating this and what you do with your books, and you can do this in both the fiction and nonfiction side, like Harry Potter does this really well, J.K. Rowling does this really well on the fiction side, right? But on the nonfiction side, it is building a community. It's encouraging readers to join in and share their stories, right? So building this community where people, they want to go in and they want to talk about what it is that they've read and what they've gotten out of your books. Like, they will do that, and when you do this, the community sells your books for you, right? Because they're so excited about what they got out of it. And again, this applies to both fiction and nonfiction. And it's one of the things that I talk about, the 10 elements of successful fiction books, in my other video. So look for that one. All right. So an example would be Chicken Soup for the Soul. They actually ask readers to submit their own stories for future books. So it makes it easier for them to get content, right? So they've got someone goes in, they read a book, and now they've got the opportunity to submit an idea for their own book. So now they've got all of these submissions that are coming in. They're building this community. They're building a database, right? Because when you go in and submit, what do you have to do? You have to give your name, your email address, right? So now they have this database. They've got ideas for future books, and it helps to build their community by helping that individual that puts in a submission feel like they're part of something. And people love to feel like they're part of something. This is why you find so many Star Trek enthusiasts. This is why you find so many Harry Potter fans. This is why you find, people that like our Tolkien's books, right? This is why you find all of the most successful books, fiction or nonfiction books, that have a community. They tend to live on and on and on and on and on. All right? So they also have the ability for spin-offs and expanded content. So spin-offs and expanded content. So it adds related items like journals and workbooks or online groups, right? So I actually have a training for this that I'm doing, and it's an expanded training where what I've done is I've given the attendee of that training workbooks so that they can go in and they can follow along. They can take notes, and then they can go back and they can refer to those notes, all right? So matter of fact, if you want to join that training, now that I'm thinking about it, you can go to kindlecashflow.com/KSS, right? And you'll join that training. You'll see how I put the workbooks and everything in place, right? So spin-offs and expanded content, where you can add relatable things like journals and workbooks or online groups, right? An example of someone who does this really well is the 5 Love Languages. This book series, they offer an app to track your progress in relationships. And again, when you go in, you sign up for the app. You have to give your name. You have to give your email address. So they're building out this community. And it gets the reader engaged as well. It gets them to take a second action outside of just reading the book and becoming a fan of it. You solidify the fact that they become someone that's part of your culture, your community, by getting them to take another action. That other action might be buying a journal. The other action might be there's a complimentary workbook that comes with this that they can go in and they can take notes in. The other action might be there's this online group or community like the PublishLikeAPro.com community that we have, right? Where they go in and they feel like they're part of a bigger thing. And it's not just your book. So think about how you can incorporate this in your own books as well. All right, so the 10th thing, 10 out of 11, we're almost there. Stay with me. All right, hopefully you guys are having fun with this, and let me know which one in the comments so far has been your best. Which one in the comments has been your best? And what I'll do is the one that gets the most votes, the one that gets the most comments, I'll double down and I'll create an expanded video on just that one. All right, so number 10 is high quality practical advice, and not just high quality practical advice, but high quality practical advice with immediate benefits. Right? So immediate benefits. So they immediately get that dopamine hit. They're immediately seeing results with it. Right? So immediate results. So your readers can actually, they can see quick improvements when they try what they learned from your book. Right? They could see these quick improvements. When I talked about the financial book, right? So being able to go in and immediately go in and take what your book's giving them, instruction-wise, and build out a budget. Right? So you know that you've done this right when you feel like in the middle of a chapter, someone's stopping and they're like, oh my God, I need to go get a notepad. I need to go get a pen. I need to go get I need to create my checklist. Right? So readers see quick improvements when they try what they learn. So an example would be a health series. So you've got this health series that might help readers lose weight with simple, quick recipes. Right? So they've got these recipes where they can go in and they can put things together just off of what they have in their refrigerator. They don't have to go shopping. They don't have to have this crazy list of things that they normally wouldn't have around the house, right? They can go in and they can build out something that's going to be healthy with 4, 5, 6 ingredients that they already have around the house anyway, right? So immediate results. So always think like, what can I incorporate into my series, and it will take place in every book. What can I do that's going to get my reader a quick result, right? So they're getting these dopamine hits, and now what happens is they kind of attach that quick result and that dopamine hit to your book. And then they come back, right? They come back over and over and over again. It becomes a drug that keeps them coming back, right? So, tangible takeaways is the other thing. So they provide things like checklists, right? They provide things like quizzes to make learning easy. Remember I said on the free training that I gave you guys a link to earlier, one of the things that I included in that training is a workbook because, again, it makes learning easy. So as I'm going through the different steps on how to go in and incorporate these 11 elements, right, the individual that's watching, they can go in, they can make notes in their workbook. They can write them down. They can type them in if it's a Google Doc workbook. So they can go and they can type them in. They can save those. Right? Things that they've written, and then they can come back and they can refer to them later on. So it provides tools like checklists or quizzes to make learning easy. An example would be a productivity book might have a checklist for setting daily goals. So you've got this checklist in it where you can go and you set daily goals. Right? So keeping in mind that having high quality practical advice that provides immediate benefits is going to be big. Immediate benefits. Because most people, we're so used to getting things like right away. We want to go in and be able to knock things out. All right? So, number 11. Finally at number 11, right? And hopefully you guys are getting some value out of this, is a focus. So, a focus on personal growth, and I'm going to put PG, or I can put PD, right? And development. So personal growth and personal development. And I promise you that this is a D and not an O. Right? So those things are pretty much the same. So personal growth and personal development. So they'll have this focus on how do you get better as an individual. Remember I said remembering that your reader is a human? And if you simply do that, it'll allow you to talk to that person that's consuming your book in more humanly ways, right? So most people, they always want, like we have this desire to get better. No one wants to stay the same. Most of us want to improve on things, right? So you'll find that the most successful nonfiction books that do extremely well out there, as part of a series, they have this self-improvement theme, right? So there's these self-improvement themes where they help the reader to become better at things that most matter to them. They help the reader to become better at things that most matter to them. So an example would be a book series that might focus on building confidence, right? Or improving public speaking. If I had a book series on how to go in and create videos like this, right? You start on the things that most people are afraid of. Well, Ty, you know, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to create enough content to continue to be consistent. Or I'm afraid of being on video, right? So it would be the self, and then I would go in and I would talk about how do you overcome those things. So you're helping the reader to become better at things that matter to them, especially if they want to achieve something, right? You start to break it down in the most simplest way so that they understand it, and then you ascend them up the ladder so that they can get results, right? It's boom. This is how you overcome this. This is how you overcome this. This is how you overcome this. And once you do those things, you now become much better than you were at it. And that's the personal development and personal growth, right? The other thing is empowerment, right? So they give readers the knowledge to handle challenges confidently. So there's a sense of empowerment. You can overcome these things, right? As I just said, overcoming the fear of speaking, overcoming the fear of being on video, overcoming the fear of sounding like you don't know what you're talking about, overcoming the fear of like no one liking or clicking or commenting on your social media post or your video. Those are all fears that someone might have. So if you give readers that knowledge to be able to handle those challenges confidently and grow into them so that their confidence continues to build, then you incorporate one of the #1 elements that you'll find in most successful nonfiction book series, all right? So an example might be a career series, a series or a book series on how to build out a career or how to go in and go after your ultimate career. It might teach interview skills to help land a job, right? How do you make eye contact? How do you make sure that you are saying the right thing? How do you research the company so that when you're going in for that job, you actually sound intelligent and you know what the company is about? You know what their core values are. You know what their missions are, right? You know what their key customer focus is, right? So that career series might help to teach interview skills that would help the individual reading that book or reading that series to land the job, or at least have a much better chance at landing the job. All right, so these are this is how you actually use incorporating these 11 elements here, right? And I'm going to go through them again really quickly. So you have #1, you've got actionable, practical information. So actionable, practical information. You go in, you put this stuff in where it gives advice that readers can use right away, and then you've got approachability and accessibility, right? Where you use this casual and easy to understand way of talking. The third thing is you've got a consistent, trusted brand. So books that are written by people who really know their stuff. And then #4, broad, flexible application. So they cover topics that a lot of people care about. Remember, I said health, I said romance, finances, right? Those are the biggest 3 there that you'll find. And then #5, there's a strong branding and recognizable format. So there's this consistent format across all of the books. They have a similar look. They have similar colors, right? Similar themes. Then #6, clear value proposition. They help readers solve specific problems that they're facing. Remember I said, right, they're super clear. Writer's block. You know what this is about, right? #7, engaging and relatable content, right? And remember I said that this focuses on being able to share things like stories and examples that people can actually connect to. Right? I shared that grandma story there. People love sitting on grandma's lap, right? So you intertwine that in your books like Chicken Soup for the Soul does, and you're bringing people back, right? #8, adaptability and longevity. So this is where you are going in, you're able to, #1, add new books onto your series, as the For Dummies series does. They stay up to date with current trends, or you're creating evergreen topics. You focus on things that people are always interested in. #9 is community engagement and fandom. This is big right here, because your community, if they love you, if they love what it is that you're sharing with them, they will be the biggest sellers of your books. If you guys go over to PublishLikeAPro.com and you love that community, you get value out of it, you get all of the tips that are helping you to become better at digital publishing and writing and creating your books and your content and your webinars and your videos and memberships and everything, you're going to go in and tell other people. Unless you're selfish, and then you might keep it to yourself, right? But your community is going to always help you to push, right? Number 10, high quality practical advice with immediate benefits. Remember, you want to be able to give people these quick wins, these quick dopamine hits. And that's big right there, right? Because they'll always come back for more. It's like the drug addict that's giving, the drug dealer that's giving someone samples. He knows that he's giving samples because, this might be a bad example, but he's giving samples because he knows the person's going to come back, right? Don't do that. That's a bad example. Don't do that. Number 11, a focus on personal growth and development, right? You're helping the reader to become better at things that most matter to them, right? That most matter to them. So this is how you write a nonfiction book series that readers can't put down. These 11 simple elements are what you'll find in some of the world's most successful nonfiction book series. Use these things to create your own hit series, and be sure to watch my complete training on how to incorporate the 10 elements that you'll find in the most successful fiction book series here as well. So look for that video. And then also my complete training on how to incorporate these into your book series by visiting kindlecashflow.com/KSS. Also be sure to join the world's fastest growing community for digital publishers, writers, authors, influencers, coaches, and others right now for free while you can by visiting www.PublishLikeAPro.com. Last but not least, please be sure to like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know which of the 11 elements to writing a best-selling nonfiction book series you most appreciate. And the one that gets the most votes, I'm going to go in and I'll create an expanded video round, and I'll double down on it. All right, so let me know which one of these you think is the most beneficial. Which one are you going to go in and put in place? Comment right now, and one that gets the most votes, I'm going to go in, I'll create an entire video on, and I'll double down. I'll show you, because there's a lot that can go into each one of these, and it's simple to put them in. But once you start to put it in, then again, you increase your chances at being much more successful. All right, so go in, comment right now, vote, let me know which one you appreciate. Ty Cohen, and I'm off. Stay well, God bless, subscribe to the channel, like, comment, share, do all the social media stuff that you should be doing. Stay well.